Hi, everyone, and welcome to Behind Your Eyes, Season 10. And in this third episode, the lovely Shelby is my guest. So, hi, Shelby, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello, thanks for having me on today. My name is Shelby Perry, and I am the CEO of Eyehesive, and I'm also a life coach. I help people that have visual impairment or prosthetic eyes just gain confidence, self-love, and power back into their daily lives.
Sounds good. We'll dive deeper into that a bit later. But I always start with the same question, and that is sincere, how are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm excited for the holidays
Mm.
and yeah, business has been good. This is my first journey through entrepreneurship. And
Mhm.
so I'm learning lots and trying out all the things. And some days are hard and I feel like, I'm ready to give up, but I always get like a message from somebody in the community that is just really touched by what I'm doing. And that always keeps
Mhm.
me moving forward.
Mm. Yeah, that's the inspiring part of being an entrepreneur, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to dive a bit deeper into your past because you've mentioned that you had a snowboarding accident, and
Hmm.
that's the reason why you have lost your eye. So yeah, if you are willing to share a bit more about that, I would love to know more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So about coming up on 3 years. So February will be 3 years since, I
Mhm.
was in a snowboarding accident. Right now I reside in California, San Diego, but I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. And so I grew up on the mountains and skiing and snowboarding, and my whole family also participates in the activity. And so
Mhm.
had already moved out to San Diego. So I was living here and I took a group of friends back to Salt Lake for a weekend to just go riding in the mountains. And, it was one of a really good weekend. We had a blast the whole
Mhm.
time. And the last run of the day before we were going to head out, I was in an accident that was pretty traumatic, obviously, and very like crazy considering the extent of it and just what all happened. Because I was tobogganed down and taken to the
Mhm.
hospital where I needed emergency surgery on my right eye. And so they did that. And then about 2 days later, I had another surgery done on my right eye. And then about a week later, went back to San Diego, established care out here.
Mhm.
And about 2 months exactly later, so at the end of April of that same year, 2021, they removed my whole eye
Mhm.
completely. They tried
Yeah.
to save it, and there was just no saving it. So I kind of all of a sudden at 30 years old had two perfectly working eyes my whole life. They were like, we're going to remove your eye, you'll get a prosthetic eye. And I just didn't know like what that meant for my future or just my day-to-day life. And
Yeah.
it was just a really scary, hard time for me. And during that healing journey and process, I was just like, I wonder if there's other people out there
Mhm.
that have gone through something like that. And that's really where my mission started, was just to find other people to connect with that
Mhm.
had lost an eye or had a prosthetic eye, just more for my own sake to kind of figure out what life was going to be like. And slowly the community started to really grow. And it's now like such a huge community. I had no idea there's so many of us. And everybody's just like so inspiring. And since then, I've with the community, I've hosted virtual conferences and I have a membership program, and then do the life coaching as well too. And we have some merchandise. So it's from thinking back 2.5 years ago when it first happened to now, I just like can't even believe that this has
Mhm.
been my path and that
Yeah.
this would come from that kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And how did you like? Because it's for me, it sounds like quite overwhelming when, like you said, for all these years you have two well-functioning eyes, and suddenly you have just one. And how do you cope with that? Because that mentally must be very hard.
Yeah. So, and luckily I have a very supportive like group of friends and family. And I also, part of my story too, which I do share about, is like 10 months prior to the snowboarding incident, I had moved to San Diego to get sober. So I was in
Mm,
AA, and I still am in AA, and I'm in this recovery community. And so when the incident happened, that community that I'd already spent like 10 months building and establishing and, working towards getting and staying sober, they were like at my doorstep
mm,
every day. And they, took me to all of my doctor's appointments. They drove me everywhere. They grocery shopped with me, did my laundry, just like helped
mm.
me day in and day out, which I was so blessed and so grateful for. And that was also, I'm like, I can't even imagine doing
Yeah.
this without like the support of the people that I had. So again, I was just really blessed to have those people, but there was still that little missing piece that they just didn't quite understand. It's
Mm,
like it could be supportive and they were doing the best they could, but they still just didn't know what it was like to lose an eye and like have
right.
this life-altering event. So that's also where I was like, okay, I want to be able to help people that don't have the support maybe close to them, and find people to help support me as well too, going through this, that understand a little bit
Mm.
more.
So what did that healing journey look like for you? How was it, a spiritual journey, or yeah, could you
Yeah,
describe that for
yeah. Yeah, a little bit of everything. And
me?
like I said, like getting sober, part of the journey and the lifelong journey of like getting and staying sober is very spiritual one.
Mhm.
So that was like my first. I'm also a yoga instructor too, and I've been doing that for about 7 years. So I'd, dabbled and played in, my spirituality. And then really when I got sober, it was instilled more, and I was able to like deepen a relationship with a higher
Mhm.
power. And so the time of the incident, I really needed to rely and lean on this higher power that I had spent the last 10 months really establishing in my life.
Mhm.
Because growing up, I didn't, go to church, and we weren't a very spiritual or God, family.
Mhm.
And so in my whole young adulthood, it was the same. And so it wasn't really until getting sober that I started to like explore what that looks like for me. And then, during the incident, I really put everything to the test, if you'll say.
Mhm.
And
Right.
looking back now, it's like with my spirituality, it's like I see so clearly now that like, everything has like lined up like perfectly for my life to be able to like be in this position to help other
Mm.
people who have now lost an eye. It's just like I know I needed, the universe and God knew I needed to be sober to even get through a situation like that. So I was already
Yeah.
like 10 months sober, and then like everything that I've learned in AA and that program of recovery has directly helped me create this program and recovery for other people that have lost an eye. So that's
Mm.
how I look at, it's like all fitting together, and that is like God
Yeah.
and the universe.
Yeah. It's like almost like creating a puzzle for your life where all the pieces start to fall together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I could really go down like a rabbit hole with it, because I definitely like every little piece. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that happened so that this could happen, or I
Right.
needed to happen in order to be here, and
Mm.
so I can just, but when you're living in it, you don't obviously see that
Oh,
at the
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so,
When you're in that state of maybe even depression or hopelessness, you don't see where it will lead you, of course, because you're, especially when you're in that time, you don't really look too far ahead because you can't really have a vision for too far ahead. So yeah,
yeah,
but when you look back several years later or so, and you're like, okay, wait, this all happened for a reason. Even just the worst parts of your life happened for a reason.
yeah, yeah, I
Mm.
can definitely feel that now. And, during it was about 6 months of like recovery, because, they didn't remove the eye right away. So I had that 2 solid months of like surgeries and them trying to leave the eye. And then finally they removed it, and it took another 3 to 4 months until I was like fully recovered. And when I mean that, like being able to drive again and really get back to
Mm.
my like normal like activities.
Yeah.
For me, it was about 6, 7 months for that period. Some people I've heard, getting back to driving and daily things sooner than that. But
Yeah.
I just really took my time, and I had the support and people helping me drive
Mhm.
and do things. So I just kind of leaned into that, which ultimately I think helped my recovery, my healing, in the long run. I didn't have energy at the beginning. I didn't feel like myself at the beginning, and I just let those feelings and like what I was feeling and the lack of energy and not myself just kind of be there. And now I'm like, full of energy and back to myself, and even like stronger self than before.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Really. And I think still when you say like, oh, it took that like so and so months to, recover or to drive, or I mean that's really fast. When I hear that, it's like, wow, you're really that's a really quick recovery. And I think that's very commendable. And still I mean I have the same, you tend to compare yourself to others who, are in a similar situation or were in a similar situation, and they like sort of healed faster, sort of. And it's still, yeah, crazy how you tend to compare yourself when you're obviously doing really, really well.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. It's hard when you're in it because you do want it to go faster. You just don't think, and I think that goes with most things in life. We always think that they're going to happen faster, or it's going to be quicker, or the outcome's going to, and it's like most everything in life, I think, takes longer than we expect, is a little harder than we expect, and so it's like just knowing that and like having grace, for yourself and compassion for that, and just being along for the ride is kind of the best energy, because it will happen.
Yeah, we have to be kind to ourselves and be patient with ourselves, I think. Well, as you mentioned, you're sober, which is also awesome. Congratulations. And I would love to know, how is your mental health now, and how do you keep yourself mentally and spiritually healthy?
Yeah. So like I mentioned as well too, I went to AA and I'm still active in AA. And for anyone that might not be familiar, it is like a 12-step program. And so we have meetings, and they have meetings all over the whole world, all types of meetings, different times of the day. So I go to a meeting. At the beginning, I was going to a meeting every single day. Now I go like 3-4 times a week, just depending on the week. But that's like really important to be in the space with other people who are also alcoholics, and we share stories and just lead and just talk about how to get through things in our lives sober. And then the other hand is like the work portion. So it's like 12 steps. We have one book that we use, and all 12 of the steps literally are like designed to create and have, so that you have a spiritual experience. And so that's like the basis of their book, is like, as a result of the 12 steps, you'll have a spiritual experience, which does and did occur for me. But you got to like do the work. So, and sometimes the work's not as fun. But and then after you do it, like the first time, you're constantly working those steps all the time. So that's doing that kind of work all the time. Like I'm making amends if I hurt somebody. I'm taking inventory on like my character defects. Like if I'm being mean or just selfish or self-centered or whatever might be coming up, if I'm feeling some type of way. So it's just this constant like going inward and like evaluating like where I'm at, and like just how to be of service to more people and help more people. And then the
like
biggest
constant self-reflection, really.
And the biggest part is the reliance on like a power greater than ourselves. And then you literally, like after that, you take other people through the steps. So at this point, I've taken a lot of other women through the steps. I'm very active in the community. So and I teach yoga at some of the detox and treatment centers. So I've worked with a lot of other alcoholics. And then I also my own yoga practice, and we go to church sometimes, but just all forms of self-healing and being around other people that are also self-healing and like working together. And then a big next leap that I took was hiring my own like life coach. So again, just deepening that like self-work for myself and to be able to help more people. And the biggest thing, in the life coaching realm that I take is that mindset work. So just having tools that create, really help, because our mind produce so many negative thoughts and repeating thoughts, and sort of breaking that pattern. And which ones do I want to continue to have, and how can I create new thoughts for myself that are going to put me on a more spiritual journey, a journey that's going to be helping more people, more in belief and just more in love of myself.
Wow. I think that's really a journey that we all should be taking.
Yeah. I've definitely, I was at a meeting last night and we were talking about this, and one of the other gals was just like, if I were to put myself, she's like about 3 years sober, same as me. She was like, next to my old self, 3 years ago,
Right.
and myself now, like they don't even live on the same planet, and I can totally relate to. And it's just like, once somebody like starts that work, it's like, it's hard to go back, and it is really life-changing as far as like, the confidence that I have in myself, my ability to like talk to people, and my fears, like all of those things that used to keep me so scared and like limited, just slowly start to go away. And I just am able to do things today that I never thought I could do.
And have you got like a favorite like spiritual self-care practice?
I guess, praying. I pray, morning and night. And then yoga for me is because I like being active and moving my body. And so I, practice a lot of yoga. So that, and then, I meditate as well too. So it's kind of a combination. I guess actually I'm really into journaling right now. And I go through phases where it's like, I love journaling and then sometimes I'm over it, but the more I journal and like ask myself like really insightful questions and like write down the answers, the more I'm like, oh, like connected to the universe, myself, God. And so that's kind of actually one of my top ones right now.
Are you sometimes surprised by the answers you've written down?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I think they're in there. So it's like, I know that they're in there, but getting them on paper is like a different, like something about it, like on paper and reading it back. I'm like, oh, I actually like, know the answers to this, it's like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do, or I don't, in this situation, or I don't know the answer. And it's like, oh, wait, I really do know the answer if I sit down and ask myself and then answer it.
Right. Well, in the email that you sent to me, you mentioned that you sometimes struggle with like everything is possible mentality on social media and how overwhelming that can be. So I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think growing up, grew up in a household that's like, you can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be, which is great. And I 1,000% like agree with that. But then there wasn't a lot of like structure in my household to like really guide me into those things. So I felt like, okay, I could do anything, but like, what do I want to do? And like, how do I even do it? So I kind of was like confused and lost for a really long time with this like little piece of belief that I could do anything, but wasn't like living up to that. And so it wasn't again until I got sober and like did this um like evaluation and the self-work and self-help journey that I really like uncovered like how to do anything I wanted to do. I do believe that like anyone can do anything that they want, because for me it's like I never thought that I could get sober. I'm 3 years sober. I never like imagined I could recover from losing an eye. And I did that. I have zero background in like business or running a business. And I'm like doing those things, and it's like, yeah, it's a lot of work and I have to like rely and lean on other people. Like I ask for help a lot. And I, do research. And so it's like, yes, like I can do anything I want. I just have to be willing to like put in the work and have a piece of like, I guess like humility or that humbleness to actually ask for help and be like, hey, I like want to do this, like can you help? And so that's how a lot of my business has been built and ran. And social media, I get caught up in it, just like you were saying earlier with the comparison. So it's like I look at other business owners or other people doing yoga and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so much more advanced or further or better. And yeah, and it can be detrimental. And I've really had to like rework my relationship with social media and realize that like, oh, these people are on a different chapter than me, you know, and
Right.
that they were once on this chapter and I'm on my own chapter at the beginning, you know, and they're on chapter 20, and that's okay. And I can get to that chapter. And it might not be even the same path, and I might
Right.
learn different things along the way, but I'm getting like reading those chapters and getting up to those chapters. And it's okay that I'm at chapter 2 right now.
Right, right. Yeah, and on social media, you only see like the highlights. People don't post, the like the darker sides of their life, or like when they're struggling, and they only show like, when they're having success or when they're traveling and feeling great. And so yeah, they only show like the highlight reel.
Totally, totally. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm guilty of that too. Like I post mostly like inspirational things or things that I
Hmm.
think are going to be helpful. And you know, there's a lot behind the scenes that people don't see either. So, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
remember exactly that too.
Yeah. Because even behind, the highlight reel, there's a lot of like struggle and maybe even like tears and doubts of
Oh yeah.
so yeah, that we don't get to see. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
always like the social media trap that a lot of
Hmm.
people tend to fall for.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, we have to say to ourselves, okay, I'm on this journey, they're on their own journey, and we all have different purposes in life. And yeah, it's fine if I'm a bit slower. Sometimes I'm a bit faster, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's again, that's that kindness and grace to yourself, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, and some days I'm really good at that. And then some days
Mhm.
I, am not as good, but it's such a good reminder to just like really, and it's for me too, it's like loving the journey. You know, it's like I'm
Mhm.
never going to be right here again where I'm at
Right.
today. And even though it might be frustrating and it's not where I want to be or where I see myself being, but I'll never be right here again. So, like, how
Mm.
much fun can I make this? How enjoyable of this part of the journey, you know, and like I'm learning these things for the first time, and like there'll never be a first time of learning these things
Mm.
again, you know, or
Oh yeah.
whatever it is. So it's
Yeah.
like I get so far caught up like, oh, like my goals and like where I want to be in the bigger
Yeah.
picture, the bigger vision, which is great, but it sometimes tears me down to be like, like I'm
Mm.
not there, I gotta work harder, I gotta work faster. And it's like, no, 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 like this is the journey, like enjoy it here.
Mm. Yeah, that's why they say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't be more true, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned that you really rely on power greater than yourself in your everyday life, but also in your business. So I would love to know a bit more how that shows up in your business.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot, like almost
Mhm.
every day, I have to, and I can tell when I'm like holding on so tight and I'm trying to control like every scenario in my business, and I'm trying to control how people react to things or how they show up, and I'm like, oh, I'm showing up so much, like why, or just
Mhm.
like holding on to everything so tightly because I am so passionate about it and I work so hard, and I put so much into it that obviously like I want it to
Mhm.
read that way. And I've really like been focusing, especially in the last like couple months, of like letting up. It's like God has a plan for it,
Mhm.
and everything along the way, like I said, like looking back, God's like had this plan for me this whole time, and he still like is going to have that plan. And if I just like let up,
Mhm.
and it's almost like that expression, like where you're like putting a square peg in a round hole, like sometimes that's what
Mhm.
I feel like I'm doing. And the moment that I kind of like let up and like take a step back and just let like God have room to
Mhm.
do what God's gonna do, then
Yeah.
that's like when magic happens, like every single time. But I like forget that, I get like amnesia and I'm like,
Mhm.
and then um when I release and kind of step back, and then something then always like kind of occurs like in that
Mhm.
moment. I'm like, oh yeah. And I really believe that it's like not my job, I guess, to know when or how like everything will pay off, we'll say, or like
Right.
come to fruition, but I know that it will, and it's just like
Mhm.
I have to just show up and be consistent. Most importantly, be like loving on myself and others, and like
Mhm.
God's gonna do the rest. But it's like
It's
a
like,
daily
yeah, when
reminder.
you step back, you create space for that, like almost divine to come in.
Hmm. Yeah. I had a gal once told me, she was like, you're literally like standing on top of everything. Like, you just step over, like, you know, get off of it
Mm.
and let, like, yeah, again, make room for God, like let God in, and it's
Yeah.
going to be like, oh, okay. And I did.
Yeah.
And then actually something happened immediately, which was kind of crazy because I feel like, again, you know, we don't always know when or how. It's like, even if I like let up for a second, I can't expect like immediate reward, you know,
Mm.
or a
Right.
sign, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm more open, and those signs like do come when I'm looking for them.
Mm. Yeah. And signs don't always show up the way you expect them to, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
That too.
Yeah, so it's also about a certain openness of like accepting or being open to seeing the signs for as they are, not how you want them or expect them to be.
1000%. Yeah. So it's all
And I
part of
would
the
I would love to know a bit more about like the business you've created, Eyehesive, and what it does and stand for.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started, like I said, back about 6 months after the initial incident. So I started it like in August of 2021. And it first was just an Instagram account. I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
just want to share my story and find a few people that maybe can relate to it. And so
Mm-hmm.
then I started asking if there was other people out there that had stories that they wanted to share about their eye removal or eye loss journey. And so I started a blog from that. So I was just sharing other people's stories and then my personal experiences. And I think I've shared over 100 blogs of other people's
Mm-hmm.
stories at this
Oh.
point. Like I got a lot, right? You know,
Mm.
as I was going and doing that. And so that was
Yeah.
kind of like the root of it, was just like building some community, building connection, starting this blog. And then from there, it has transitioned into, I've done 2 virtual conferences for the community, brought in speakers. Like people are all over the world, so it's
Mm.
easier to do it over Zoom. And so, yeah, 2 different conferences. And then I started selling merchandise. So I have shirts that say like One Eye Gang on them. And we have
Yeah.
hoodies and beanies and bookmarks now.
Yeah.
Um, and One Eye Gang supporter shirts even. And we've got little kid
Oh,
sizes all the way to, you know, adults, because there's a lot of kids in the community as well too.
mm. Yeah.
So that's, and then I started coaching within the community almost like for this last year, all of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Started one-on-one coaching. So that's been such a joy to really be able to connect with people on a personal level every week. It's like a 5-month container, and we just work through, just depending on where they're at. Every situation slightly different, because if they're just barely going through their eye loss or eye injury journey,
Mm.
the
Yeah.
things that they need are a little bit different. But then I also work with adults that have lost their eye when they were children, and they just
Mm.
haven't really like fully embraced it or accepted it or been able to talk about it for a really long time. The prosthetic eye world was kind of like, you get an eye, like, because if you have a natural looking eye, it looks pretty similar, and it's like you get the eye and then we just don't talk about it, you know. And it's
Mm.
just like, for a long time, a lot of these children growing up kind of felt shameful or different, and there just wasn't any space to talk about it. And so that's really where I've tried to create this like community where it's like, it's okay to be different, it's okay to have a prosthetic eye. And then the fun eyes, which I have this glittery
Mm.
sparkly eye in today,
Love it.
really taken off as well too. So there's an ocularist up in Portland, Oregon, who makes the fun eyes. There's several others, but that's the
Mhm.
gal I visit. And then she and another gal in the community have a nonprofit called the Fun Eye Fund, and I'm on the
Mhm.
board of that nonprofit. So we also raise money to help people get the fun eyes that want them. Um, so just, yeah, a lot. And then recently I launched a membership. So it's for anyone in the community, and we meet 3 times a month over Zoom. And I also have like a back end portal that also has all of the self-help and like spiritual things. There's meditation, there's journaling prompts. So no matter where they're at in their journey, they can come in and again get the back end videos, the portal of just like self-help stuff. And then they get a built-in community where we meet on Zoom 3 times a month.
Lovely.
So I just
And you
launched that.
mentioned like oh sorry, like the glittery eye and the one-eyed gang and so
Mhm.
like and that to me is like okay, like laughter and being able to joke about it is so essential in almost like grounding and healing.
It's so much. Yeah. Like I didn't even know that the fun eyes were an option at the
Mm,
beginning, but I remember being in the hospital room and my friends being like, oh my gosh, like you're going to have to get like a bionic eye or an eye that glows in the dark, or they just knew like with my personality that I was going to need something fun. And then on
yeah,
social media, once I started seeing some of the other girls that had them, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is an option. Like I need that, it's just like I need to be able to express myself and like make it fun.
yeah,
If I'm gonna be different, like I want to share that. And I also a big like factor and thing that I love about the fun eyes is, when I'm out in public, people will ask me, it like
mhm,
starts conversations. So I
yeah,
love, talking with people, and I've met people that are like, I know someone with a prosthetic eye, so I'm like, tell them to come to the community,
mm,
and just I'm
yeah,
all about trying to, bring people in just so that, and there's just so many people in the community that just felt so alone their whole lives because there really hasn't been much community or resources or help for people with prosthetic eyes. So this is
mm,
really the first time that like something so established has been built and set.
yeah,
Um, I don't want
yeah.
people to
But
feel
is there
alone.
still like a lack of understanding for people with like eye impairments or a fake eye or?
Yeah, yeah, I think in every area is a little bit different when we're talking about like, other countries and stuff with what, it's I mean, the getting the prosthetic eye is like already kind of challenging even here in the US because there's limited people that make the prosthetic eyes. So
Right.
I'm fortunate I'm in California and there's, one here, but a lot of Midwest states, like they have to travel really far. Insurance can be really challenging. Insurance definitely doesn't cover the fun eyes. So that's why we started the nonprofit. And then other countries around the world, like they have like zero access to getting a prosthetic eye. And then, everybody just has such different thoughts, like on people's limitations on like what they can do and can't do. And, realistically, as long as your good eye has good vision, you should be able to drive and work and do all the things.
Hmm.
But it's just, I think everybody has like such a different perception on it. And I know a lot of kids growing up, they were told that they couldn't do sports or do activities that like certain activities, and just as like isn't the case. So it's just like kind of sharing with the world that like you can do anything you want.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
can still like I know baseball players, professional baseball players. I know like professional BMX players that have or BMX riders that have one eye. So
Mhm.
you can, it might take
Yeah.
more work and it might be a little bit more challenging. You got to figure out what works for you, but you still can do a lot.
Mm. And what is the best advice you were ever given?
Oh, that's a good one. Like ever or with my eye loss,
No, just in general.
just in general. Um, I mean, I guess this kind of goes with like the sobriety and then also with the eye loss. Like the first thing that came to my mind, and what I really share is like taking that time to actually allow yourself to heal, no matter what you're going through. And that can go towards a breakup or a loss of job or family member or any, and with, sorry, this is going to be a caveat, but any life altering event, which the membership portal that I've launched, obviously it's a lot of people with one eye, but I'm working on growing it towards anyone that's had a life altering event. So I'd
Right.
love to take like the same community and the support that I have with my one-eyed people and like give that to anyone that's maybe lost a limb or in a wheelchair or going through something that they just can't talk to their or is hard to talk to or
Mhm.
relate to their people in their day-to-day life. So
Yeah.
any life altering event, and that's what the membership's called, like after life altering. And so anyways, going back to the advice part
Mm.
is just really taking that time to heal. So listening to your body, and I know like it sounds cheesy, and for a long time I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And it's just like, finding that place where you're able to rest, recover, have that compassion, that grace for yourself, and then on the other hand, it's like, okay, so what do I need to do from here? Like, how am I going to still pursue my life, and what is it that looks like for me? So I guess I got advice, at both at the beginning of my sobriety and at the eye loss injury from different people that was just like, rest and recover right now, and everything will be like, it's kind of that short-term sacrifice for like long-term gain. And I think I do that in business, and it falls into that aspect of trusting God and the universe, that if I just rest and do what I need right now, that like everything will fall into place, and having that trust, I guess is kind of a lot in there, but maybe that kind of
my last question is also always the same, and that is, when are you at your happiest?
Kind of a loaded question too for me, because I feel like there's a lot of things that do make me happy, and I definitely like seek out those things. And like I said, being at yoga or working out, I like to be active, but I definitely love socializing and my friends, so we try to do little parties or get-togethers often. I think, but when it really comes down to like having peace of mind and being happy like in self, it would just be the like process of like enjoying the journey, slowing down, doing the self-care practices that I know work. So my journaling, praying, just even having a cup of coffee in the morning and kind of sitting still, like a little morning routine or a night routine, that I'm just like, okay, I can be great. I'm grateful. And where can I slow down? I think that's like really the phase I'm in right now, is like, where can I slow down? That also I know and trust that's gonna still be grand, in the end. Not trust me. So that was, kind of a lot, but okay.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and I'm sure it will inspire many people. So thank you so much, Shelby.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love chatting with you today.